we've been dying for any indication about movement in the draft order or what we can glean about who's taking who. And with Cam Ward's pro day and the Giants signing 2 veterans at the quarterback spot, how did this week give you, Tom, any better sense of what is going to happen at the top of the draft 28 days from now in Green Bay?
I don't know that it really clarified a whole lot, Rich, because I would say the feeling within the league for several weeks now has been the overwhelming favorite in terms of the possibilities of number 1 is the Titans stand in and they take Cam Ward. Now, they've also been open to listening to potential offers. And listen, if somebody is willing to give you 3 first-round draft picks to move up number 1 and you move back a couple of spots and either take a different quarterback or take a position player here, it's something you have to be willing to think about. But you
it's,
saw
it's
Cam
less
Ward.
just jumping in here. It's less likely the Giants will do that now because they got 2 vets, right? Like, why would you sign 2 vets and then trade all that draft capital to go get somebody that the draft capital mandates and the position where you choose him for him to start week 1? Why would you do that?
Or you could say, were the Giants looking at this and saying, no matter what, the type of draft capital it would take to get number 1 is not going to be worth it from a value perspective. So let's go sign 2 quarterbacks who are going to make a combined like $15 million, eliminate nothing. And maybe if the quarterback we want is there at 3, we've got the opportunity to not give up all that additional draft capital and still get a guy. And that's where, in the calls and conversations I've had over the past couple of days, that's what everybody now is trying to project out, because the Browns are sitting there at number 2. They certainly are a threat to take a quarterback. They had an offer out to Russell Wilson. It was not at the level of the Giants' offer to Russell Wilson, but that was also not going to preclude them from taking a quarterback at number 2. I would say I've heard more about the Giants being linked to Shedeur Sanders than I have with the Browns over the past several weeks here. So would the Browns potentially take an Abdul Carter or a Travis Hunter at 2? Would they trade down with somebody who wants to get ahead of the Giants and have their pick of the second quarterback? These are all moving parts. I would say, to the extent that people looked at signing Jameis and signing Russell Wilson and said, well, this means now the Giants aren't going quarterback, or maybe they're not. Maybe they'll go in the second round or trade up and get Jackson Dart, whatever it is, but do it later in the draft. I had a GM call me yesterday and brought up, without me asking, like, why is everybody saying that the Giants now don't take a quarterback? He's like, they've set up the perfect room for a guy like Shedeur Sanders to walk into, because Russell Wilson, whatever you want to say about him, he works his tail off. He prepares. His entire life and his entire routine is built around being a player. And Jameis, again, he's gone through a really interesting arc here, but he's been in the league for a decade because, he's learned to do things the way you need to do them. What better 2 guys do you have in the room for a Shedeur Sanders to walk in and learn from? And then, it gives you optionality for what you do with that pick. You're not locked into taking a quarterback. And you also don't have so much money committed to those other 2 guys that if Shedeur Sanders is the best player, or whoever that quarterback is in camp, that you can't go, we're just going to start him right out of the gate. I mean, Russell Wilson was that guy. Granted, he was a 3rd-round pick, but you remember he walked into a situation where he was 3rd on the depth chart in Seattle back in 2012, and they had given some money to Matt Flynn. And then Pete Carroll looked at it and said, that's the best guy. We're going to play him. I don't think that anything the Giants did, was this their number 1 option to sign Russell Wilson and sign Jameis Winston? No, they were strongly in on Matthew Stafford in the course of the process. They certainly had a strong interest in Aaron Rodgers. But, in terms of the way they've set that thing up and how little it costs them to get those 2 quarterbacks in, it takes nothing off the table. So the Giants, it seems right now, are in as good a spot as they could be in. Would they be in a better spot if they hadn't won that game over the Colts in Week 17? Yeah, that's fair to say. You'd be sitting there at number 1. You wouldn't have had to do any of this stuff. That's not the situation. They conserved resources. They didn't have to spend a ton in free agency. They didn't go out and give Sam Darnold $35 million a year. They spent $15 million total on 2 guys who are both, even though Russ, Rich, walks in the door as the starter here, it's really backup or at best bridge money that they gave him. Jameis is clear backup money. And you got yourself some options here, depending exactly how this draft process plays out.
There you go. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.